Okay, so this is the second video, sort of quickly going over Django, sort of the bare minimum to get it going. There was probably a better spot to split because it was not quite going to be in half. That first video ended up much longer than I intended for it to be. So I thought I'd split it into two, but it's not an even split in the middle, but it's probably a good spot. This is the first video covered all the setup, and our first basic page. We used a Python script to echo some HTML code back to a web page that we can view in our browser. So continuing from there, instead of just echoing back a string, which for the purpose of an example, I wanted to make sure it was clear that it's one string. You'd probably use the concatenation operation to build that up over several lines, right? Like start with a blank one and then page, concatenate the opening HTML tag, and then page, concatenate the opening head tag for the HTML code, and whatever words you want to put there. Split over several lines. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that it's one string in the example. And then we echo back that string. Well, we can also echo back a template, which is probably what you're going to want to do for your project and get the GUI together that way. So here in our little app that we put together, we'll want to make a folder to put our templates in. So I'm going to create a new folder, which Windows 11 moved the buttons. I'm going to come over here and create a new folder. I'll call it templates. Oh, sorry, had to do some editing. Let me rename this. So I'm going to call this folder templates. And in here, I'm going to create an HTML page as a template that we can use. So come back over to the text editor, create a new file, and it's going to be an HTML page, so I'm going to save it with the right extension. This will be maybe otherpage.html. And here we can just type our HTML like normal for those who are familiar with that. Our doc type declaration, which we won't need until the next update on the code standards. And if we skipped it, then we'll have to come back and put that in everything we skipped. So probably a better idea not to skip it. And I'll put in the title tag, but this is a template, not a finished thing. So I don't want to put the title there yet. And same thing down here in the body. I'll go ahead and set up the body tag. And inside here, I'll put some H1 tags for the example. I'm just going to echo back the words hello world like normal for trivial example. Because if we can get the words hello world to show up, that means everything's configured correctly. And then we can do more complicated things. But we want to check our configurations with easy things. So instead of putting those words here, I want to leave an empty spot for those words to go. And in Django, the way they set it up are empty spots to fill in. If I'll use two curly braces, so use two curly braces, and then we'll put a name for what it is. I'll call this a title, and down here, two curly braces, and call this a message. And then the spaces are optional. Those are just there to make it easier to read. And what these words are is we're going to send a dictionary when we send stuff back. Instead of sending a string, we'll send back a Python dictionary, and in that dictionary we'll have keys holding values for title and message. So a dictionary, sort of, you think of it like an array or a list, only when we index it, instead of using numbers to index it, we use words to index it, which are much, much more useful. I guess technically we can use integers as an index, but then the dictionary kind of becomes pointless. So now if we go back to our views page, we get what this was actually supposed to be by default. Remember, we added this import line in the previous video. This is the second of 2 videos since I had to split it up. But by default, there was this render method. So if we use that, we can return an entire web page template that we fill in from a Python dictionary, which is what you're probably going to do. So I'm going to make this page, I'll call it other. And again, everything on the views, anytime we request a view, it's a server request that will be passed in as an argument from the background whenever this is at runtime. And all we need to do for this method is return that render method. And for the render method, we need it takes 3 parameters, so we'll send 3 arguments to Philip. The first is the request that was made, because that request includes who made it, so who do we send it back to? That's one of the things in there. And then we'll need our template, which was called otherpage.html. And then a dictionary, so curly braces instead of square brackets. And we'll use key value pairs instead of indexing a list. So when we set a key of title that holds a value of what we want to put where we left the title spot over here. I guess this is just other page. We'll work there. And for our example here, we also left a spot for a message key. So we'll create a key called message, and it will be holding the value hello world. So when we run this Python method, which this is kind of more which project's going to be, you're going to set up templates that have all those nice fancy things, right? Like a form. We'll come back and talk about how to process the form. Well, really, it's just the action attribute of the form. We'll call one of the functions that we put into the views for preview mode, or some of y'all can probably already know what that means. And then we can put in things like buttons. I'm just going to put them on the page randomly for filler right now, and checkboxes, input, type equals checkbox. Value equals checker. Can't think of a good name for it. But all of our HTML code, and then we can make a really nice looking form using CSS to style it, make it look really nice, and normal web page. And we just send data to it from a Python script. So that's the basic idea of how Django will work. And most of our methods will look exactly like this. We'll set up a template, pass in the request we got when this method was called, and then send a dictionary that will contain the data we want to show on our page. So then a whole bunch of the rest of the Python script will probably be putting together that dictionary to send to the page. So save this, and then once again, we already set up the overall settings, so we need to add this to the list of URL patterns, so addresses that we can type in and find things. So I'm going to add another one, a path, and we'll call it other page. So we'll type my page / other page into the browser window. And when we do, it's going to go to that view script and call the other method. Which, no parentheses here. We only want it, we just tell it which method to call, and then it'll add the parentheses and actually call the method on its own later. So where the, not that one, too many windows open. And if I go click in the taskbar, it'll mess up the video. Is why I'm having to do this. So we made some changes. So I'm going to hit Control-C to cancel the server and then restart it. Yep, run server. So it should be running. We come over here, open the browser, and up in the address bar, instead of going to home page, we'll go to other page, and there's our other page. Oh, I forgot to put words next to the checkbox, but the buttons and the checkboxes and all the HTML forms styled nicely with CSS is what you'll use for your GUI. HTML code, you can see the title came back. So for the most part, be using templates. Where we set it up, leave that little blank. There's selection structures, might as well throw those in there since that first video went so long. If we want to check it, we use curly brace, %, and then we can say something like if message. So if the message key is full, then do this line of code. Else, we'll just do a default one. We'll put default message up there. And then the way they set up Django, we need end if as one word there at the end. So that's how we do our conditions. So you might want that just to make sure your data came through and put some defaults. I thought there might be times because of where the two videos were split. But for the most part, we'll be doing this. We set up HTML code templates with spots for keys from Python dictionaries to go. So real quick, I'm going to take out this part of the dictionary, like Control X, save that. So if I reload the page, you see that if else kicked in and we got the default message. But if that key is there, so paste that back in, save that. If the key is available, it'll load that data in. And then we'll use buttons and stuff to call those Python functions. So that's a quick pass at Django. That was a lot, but I believe that was still a whole lot shorter than the tutorials the standardized statewide course shell went with. So I wanted to make some shorter videos showing the bare minimum instead of trying to show every possible detail right up front. We can learn the fine details in the long run. Let's start with the bare minimum, get that going. For the most part, you're going to be making HTML pages like this. So somebody in the group will probably be doing the HTML templates. Somebody in the group will be doing the request. And, well, y'all will decide how the group splits it up. But however you want to, you'll be doing some Python code that ultimately puts together a dictionary that then that dictionary gets passed to the HTML template page that has buttons and checkboxes and things to turn it into an app, and then we'll have web-based apps for the project in this class because that's really where software development is in the current state of our world, and every indication seems to be that it is going to continue heading that way and not go back to individual desktop apps that have to be installed. So that's why the course is moving this way. And that was an introduction. We'll talk about it more, but hopefully that was a little shorter than the really, really long tutorial that is in the statewide course shell. We'll talk about this more soon, and I started out the video by saying that please don't panic right off the bat. I've already heard some people panicking a little. I'm going to ask at the beginning of next week who has been able to communicate to their group partners and make sure that groups are filled with people that are responding to messages and communicating with each other to avoid that panic. So if you have any questions, let me know. There's going to be some more Django stuff coming and lots of other stuff. I have some I like to throw in random Python libraries that would be useful. We'll probably look at PyAutoGUI in a video and an announcement soon, but more stuff coming. Hopefully that setup was a lot, but the second video hopefully that's the bulk of what you're going to be doing. writing Python functions that put together a dictionary and then sends it to an HTML template page. And that's what the final project's going to be. So hopefully that last little part there eased some of the worries about what the final project's going to be. See y'all soon.